It still amazes me how families can shatter apart so abruptly, how bonds you thought were safe and comforting can turn into sources of dread and alarm. I'm 24 years old, 8 months pregnant with a baby girl, and up until I announced this pregnancy, my aunt and cousin were people I considered family in every meaningful sense, not just by blood, but by the everyday closeness that comes from years spent learning to live with tragedy and loss. My mother died when my sister and I were very young. My aunt stepped in like a mother figure, not legally adopting us, but certainly becoming a pillar of guidance. We spent holidays at her house, our summer breaks orbiting around her living room, my cousin and I giggling over silly jokes and borrowed clothes. For years, I saw her as a second mom, my cousin as more of a sister than just my aunt's daughter. We helped each other through tough times. My cousin's struggle with infertility over the past 5 years weighed on us all. I knew how desperately she wanted a child, and I tried to support her the best I could, sending her encouraging notes, listening to her pain, and quietly praying she'd find peace. I sympathized, I truly did. Yet when I became pregnant, everything shifted. My partner and I are happy. We adore our unborn daughter, already imagining her in tiny outfits, planning a small corner of our apartment into a nursery. We have no intention whatsoever of giving her up. But from the moment I announced my pregnancy, my aunt began pushing for me to let my cousin have my baby. In her view, my cousin had been denied a baby so long that it was my moral duty to help by relinquishing my daughter. My aunt's reasoning is steeped in her religious beliefs. She's a devout Mormon, attends church regularly, and clings to a rigid, close-minded view of morality and family life. In her eyes, a child must be raised within a strong religious framework, preferably Christian and specifically Mormon. A child should have a providing father who leads prayer and moral instruction, and a loving, attentive mother who can focus primarily on child rearing. Since my partner is not Christian, and because both of us have full-time careers, she views our household as morally insufficient. She believes our differences in faith will leave the child confused and misguided, lacking a proper sense of identity and a moral compass. Without religious rituals and the community she values, my aunt fears our daughter might go down a dark, immoral path. According to her, my cousin and her husband, who works part-time from home, are far better equipped to provide a stable, values-driven environment. This argument would be hurtful enough if stated calmly and once, but it didn't end there. Over the last month, I've had to cut off most avenues of communication with both my aunt and my cousin. I blocked their calls, texts, and social media messages. My partner and I moved to a new home, one they don't know the address of. We got married in a private ceremony to ensure no one else in the family could claim a right to my medical decisions. I'm taking every precaution because something about their insistence frightens me. My aunt, out of the two, has been more aggressive. She even showed up at my old apartment one afternoon, shouting and arguing, demanding I get in her car so she could discuss the situation at a cafe near her church. I told her there was nothing to discuss, that I'm keeping my baby. She kept insisting. I ended up having to talk to the apartment manager and hide until my aunt gave up and left about half an hour later. As if that wasn't enough, my aunt's church friends, complete strangers to me, have started sending hostile text messages and voicemails. I assume they heard a twisted version of events from her. These calls imply I'm making a terrible mistake, that I'm denying my child a rightful home, and some even hint that God will judge me harshly. My cousin, meanwhile, is quieter but not any less troubling. She's been suffering from depression and trauma since last year, when she lost her baby girl to a stillbirth at 30 weeks. We all mourned that loss. I remember crying for her, for the emptiness she must feel. Yet now, gossip has reached me that my cousin has been trying to find a baby through various motherhood-related groups online. She's joined communities for mothers, widows, and young pregnant women, apparently harassing them for their babies. She was even banned from several groups due to her behavior. It said that my cousin is convinced that I will give birth and be so overwhelmed by motherhood and the responsibilities that I'll surrender my baby to her. She apparently believes my baby is somehow connected to her lost daughter, like a replacement or a divine second chance. My aunt feeds these fantasies, telling me it won't be so hard to give the baby up because we're family and I'm young. I can have another child later. She even points out that I have plans to attend grad school eventually, implying I can't raise a child and continue my education. Instead, I should give more to my baby by letting my cousin adopt her. My cousin wants to get back in contact with me as we used to be before my pregnancy. We used to be close in a friendly, supportive way. I was genuinely fond of her. But this new development, her desperation and my aunt's encouragement, makes me fear for my safety. I've decided not to speak to my cousin again until after I give birth. Stress in late pregnancy is the last thing I need, especially of this magnitude. The future looms uncertain. I'm planning a large wedding celebration next year. My partner and I married privately this year, but we want to share our happiness with friends and family in a proper party. Will I invite my aunt or cousin? I have supportive family members on both sides, but some are loyal to my aunt. Will the support I enjoy now remain strong in a year's time? How will I navigate family gatherings without living in fear that my aunt or cousin might attempt something desperate? I've already started skipping family events where I know they'll be present. I don't want to miss out on all the fun and love of family functions, but right now, the risk is too high. I'm not sure how our relationships will evolve after I give birth. Will they accept my decision or continue to push? Will my aunt double down on her religious arguments, or will my cousin's heartbreak drive her to escalate her attempts? We contacted the local church leader, a bishop, about the situation. We explained everything: my aunt's harassment, my cousin's traumatic loss, her misguided hope of adopting my baby. Initially, the bishop dismissed it as a family conflict and suggested counseling. We told him about the stress, the fear, and the harassment. He said he understood my side and knew what my cousin had been through, but was hesitant to intervene directly. He offered to contact my aunt and cousin to see what they had to say. When I followed up with him, he said my aunt and cousin wanted to speak with me, concerned that I stopped communicating and moved away. Of course I moved. I need to protect my family. The bishop asked for personal details about how I was coping and tried again to set up some meeting or refer us to services. I refused. I'm not comfortable meeting them or even talking extensively. He suggested I at least call my cousin. I told him no, not right now. He said he would meet my aunt himself since I was too scared. That comment stung as if my fear was unwarranted. Our call ended abruptly. A friend of mine warned me against even meeting the bishop. "Why risk it?" she said. "He might give your address to your aunt. They could follow you home, find your hospital, and try to claim your baby." It's horrifying to think about, but there have been cases of desperate people doing dangerous things. I can't trust my aunt or cousin, nor can I rely on the church to protect me. If worse comes to worst, I'll move even farther away. I won't risk my baby's safety. We spoke to the bishop once more. He said he can't do much beyond suggesting counseling. He admitted meeting with my aunt, focusing on my cousin's healing. He claimed my cousin mourns the loss of my friendship and my sister's distance. I told him my cousin tried to take my baby to replace hers, endangering my family. He seemed to lose interest in the conversation. He told me to do what's best for my family and consider my cousin's grief. He advised contacting family counseling. My partner and I then emailed him with our lawyer copied, closing off communication. I decided to unblock my cousin long enough to send one final message. I told her my partner and I are keeping our baby. It's not up for debate. I encouraged her to seek professional therapy and stated, I'm not comfortable with her, her husband, or my aunt being part of my child's life. She hasn't responded. Regardless of her reply, she will not be involved in my daughter's upbringing. In August, my aunt reached out with a new number. asking if I'd had the baby yet and how I was doing. I explained my situation briefly and asked about my cousin. My aunt said they tried adopting through church connections but had no luck. She mentioned my cousin's husband's past might be a problem for a formal adoption agency. She then ranted about dropping birth rates and people denying themselves parenthood. She asked if I still wanted my baby and got angry about ninth-month abortions. She's vehemently pro-life without exceptions. I reaffirmed my decision. She said my cousin was aging, in her early 30s, and her nest remained empty. My aunt suggested I share the joy and let my cousin be part of my daughter's life. I refused, citing past behavior and the fear that my cousin might again try to position herself as my daughter's mother. My aunt claimed my cousin was improving with church counseling, but I still said no. She asked if I knew any resources for adoption. I didn't and told her they should be patient and careful. She insisted that my cousin and her husband deserved children for their reputation's sake. Then she pressed me about my future family plans and asked if they could be involved next time I have a child. The call dragged on, revealing more and more of her old habits and biases. Eventually, she ended it. I felt drained and irritated. My sister has been my eyes and ears, keeping me updated on my aunt, cousin, and other family matters. According to my sister, my cousin's mental health has somewhat improved, though she still suffers deep depressive episodes. She's disappointed with the weakened relationships with me and my sister. My cousin and her husband are now exploring IVF abroad, hoping for a miracle. They believe struggling to start a family is part of God's plan to strengthen them. My cousin apparently still views my baby as something she lost, but hopes God will grant her children soon and is seeking forgiveness for her sins. We're skipping Thanksgiving with my side of the family. It's too risky, too stressful. I'm returning to work soon, likely after the holidays, and I've arranged childcare with precautions. The future looks brighter for us, free from their interference. My cousin always wanted to adopt, or so she said. She and her husband don't mind IVF, which contradicts their loudly stated pro-life stance, because they feel it's their only chance at starting a family. IVF worked once before, but ended tragically with a very premature baby who passed away right after birth. Now they want to try IVF abroad, swayed by rumors of better doctors. They think God wants them to struggle, to make their eventual parenthood more meaningful. Yet none of this changes my stance or eases my worries. I've set boundaries. My aunt and cousin know where I stand. I'm protecting myself, my partner, and my soon-to-be-born daughter. They won't be part of her life. If they truly improve and respect my decisions in the future, maybe we'll navigate some distant, cordial relationship. But for now, I'm focused on my baby and my family's well-being. It's not what I imagined when I first dreamed of motherhood and family unity. Still, I choose my child's safety and my peace of mind. Whatever hardship comes, we'll face it together, my partner and I, forging our own path free from their meddling.